In today's episode, Chef Kendra will show us how to make her delicious kosher, slow-roasted, dry-aged, USDA prime 4-bone prime rib using Prairie Street Prime's dry-aged beef 4-bone prime rib roast USDA prime.
This one is the one that I've had my eye on. It's like my prize. Welcome to the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen. I'm your chef, Chef Kendra, and I am so excited to be presenting to you this incredible cut of meat with a super classic, anybody can do it recipe. This is Prairie Street Prime's 4-bone-in prime rib roast, but not just any kind of 4-bone-in prime rib roast. Prairie Street Prime offers 3 kinds of 4-bone-in prime rib roast. We have our 4-bone-in prime rib, which is fabulous. We have our 4-bone USDA prime rib roast, which is spectacular. And if you remember, I actually did a recipe with the sous vide and then we seared it, total perfection. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is our 28-day dry-aged 4-bone-in USDA prime rib roast. So what is in a name? The word prime doesn't refer to the grading of the meat. It refers to the cut itself. But in this case, folks, we have a USDA prime 4-bone-in prime rib roast. USDA prime refers to less than 5% of all the beef in the US. But as if that isn't enough, right here, we have a 4-bone-in USDA prime rib roast that is 28-day dry aged. And that, my friends, is what we are making for you today. It is the creme de la creme de la creme de la creme. Okay, so now that we fully understand what the title actually means and how important it is, let's talk about the meat. We're gonna kind of work our way around the geography of it a little bit. Want to point out several important things. One, when we send it to you, we actually French the bones, which means that we remove the skin and the fat away from the bones. It's a beautiful presentation. Let's talk about the meat itself. You're gonna notice that there are actually several important pieces here. We have this fat cap, right, which is the outer fat. This, when we put it into the oven, is basically gonna baste and melt all over the meat, okay? So this is fat number 1. Fat number 2 is what we refer to as the marbling, and that's actually the fat that you find in between the meat fibers, which when it's cooking, it melts, and that's what makes the meat so tender and succulent. Now, the other thing I wanna point out is this incredible eye right here. This is definitely something that you wanna look for when you're picking quality. The bigger the eye, the bigger the prize. It is fantastic. All right, we've gone through the name, we've gone through the geography of the meat, but what exactly is dry aging and why would we want to try that? Well, there's a lot of moisture in meat. So what the dry aging process does is it slowly and in a very controlled way removes that moisture from the meat. So we are using the 28-day dry aged, which we feel is a great introductory time frame for people who may have never had it before. When you get into a longer dry age, like a 45-day or a 60-day, it definitely really intensifies the meatiness of the meat. So let's start off with this and work our way up. Now, I'm going to show you a very classic preparation. There are a couple things that you can do with this. Now, I'm going to be removing the bones. You do not have to do that, okay? It is not a requirement, but I just want to show you so that way if you feel like giving it a go, you might feel a little bit more confident in the kitchen, because that's the whole point of these videos, is to educate and to help you feel confident when working with a big hunk of meat like this. So why am I going to be removing the bones? I like to have a medium rare roast, but I like my bones more well done. Now you can totally do this at the end if you prefer the same thing, but it really comes down to preference. So I do want to cook the bones on with the prime rib because it protects the meat, helps to keep it nice and moist, but I'm going to tie them back on. So let me show you. All right, my bones run this way, okay? I have a nice, beautiful, sharp Wusthof knife, the only knife that I use. And I'm gonna just very carefully start to cut down my bone here. And I wanna make sure to follow it as close as possible. Go down to number 2. Now, I'm not gonna rush through this process, right? This is a long cook. I wanna take my time with it. It's a beautiful cut of meat. No need to rush. Okay. And you can feel it with your knife as you're cutting down. You wanna be able to use a boning knife because you're really just gonna be using this tip part. It gives you the most control when you're cutting through the meat to remove the bones. Okay, I wanna keep as much meat, and I'm just making these small motions. Okay, so you can see I'm just pulling away. See how that's coming apart nicely, nice and even. Beautiful. That's it. So let's put this guy back together. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to use some coarse kosher salt. I'm gonna salt the whole thing. So by removing the bones, you also have an opportunity to season the inside as well as just the outside. Some ground black pepper. Flip it around. You wanna get all these sides because after the roasting process, I'm going to be searing it all around. Okay, so it's down. Let's get these bones, salt on the inside. Pepper on the inside. That there. Okay, now I'm gonna take my spoon and get that garlic. And just smother it in. Again, I made it into a paste, so it's gonna be nice and, well, pasty. Perfect. And then I'm using some dried rosemary, but some fresh rosemary would be beautiful if you just laid a couple of the stalks down and then folded your bones back over. I mean, talk about presentation, guys. So, dried rosemary. Excellent. Now, the bones are gonna go back on as such. Flip it so that way it stays together while I give it a good tie. So I'm not just using any string, right? I don't want to just go to the hardware store and grab some twine. I actually want to use some real butcher's twine, which is food safe, so you can order it on Amazon. Now, you can have fancy ties if you would like. I try to be as fancy as I can, but sometimes a good old knot is a good old knot. So I'm gonna bring this around. I have some nice long strings here. I'm gonna go in between the first bone and really give it a good tug. The reason why is because during the cooking process, it is going to shrink in size. Also, because of all this amazing marbling in the meat, it tends to get really loose and it can fall apart. So I wanna just try and keep it together the best I can. So there's one knot, okay? 2. Okay, and number 3. I don't need all these extra strings, so I'm gonna give them a trim. My oven is preheated to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to be roasting this low and slow. Well, not totally low, but definitely slow, right? Because I don't wanna get too crazy with it. I wanna actually sear it at the end, not at the beginning. I'm going to use a nice big roasting pan. I have a rack in the pan to keep it up off of the bottom. That way it's not sitting in its juices. I also want to have some space for air to get underneath. That way it cooks evenly all the way throughout. I'm going to put this in bone side down. Now the reason why we do that is because at Prairie Street Prime, we actually leave about 1/2 inch of the fat cap. That fat cap on top, as it cooks, is going to basically baste the rest of the roast. And it is going to just make it so nice, sweet, and succulent. Delicious. The entire cook time is gonna be about 4 to 5 hours. After about 1.5 hours in this 325-degree oven, I'm going to test the internal temperature. I wanna look for about 125. That'll let me know about how much longer I have to go, okay? It's a good gauging point. But I don't wanna keep opening the oven and closing it because the more you look, the less you cook. My job here for right now is done. See you back in a little bit. I am so excited for this 4-bone-in USDA prime rib roast that has been 28 days dry aged. We gave it a nice classic roasting at a 325-degree oven. I checked it at about 1.5 hours. Looked like it still needed another 2 hours to go. I pulled it at exactly 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, make sure that you know your oven. They tend to fluctuate and you wanna just always check that internal temperature. So you remember I cut off the bones. Again, you didn't have to do that, but I did. So I'm going to separate them now, the bones from the roast. Just cut off my strings. See how tight these get in here. Great. Oh, and I should mention too, before I'm even doing this, I did also let this rest for about 30 minutes. This is a big piece of meat, and I still wanted it to come up to that 135-ish degree temperature. Let me get rid of the strings. Oh my God, this is absolutely stunning. Guys, you don't get much better than this, let me tell you. Oh my God. This is amazing. You're gonna see more when we slice into it, but first, what I wanna do is, I wanna actually, these always end up at my family's parties at least, the bones are always like the most desirable thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and separate them first. Again, always using really sharp knives. I love Wusthof. Just cut down. Perfect. And then, beautiful. Okay, it's onto my little pan. See how these are still like that perfect medium rare? That's why I'm gonna cook these a little bit longer because I want these to be more well done. Okay, now after I sear these guys up and get them to that perfect well done, I'm actually going to take my roast over, okay, and just sear the bottom of it. Now I don't have to actually sear the whole thing because when I took it out, it was this perfectly crusty, dark top that I just want it nice and crisp on the bottom too. So let's go sear these. I cannot wait for this. I'm gonna actually put them down like this right now. Bone up. Now, what I can do simultaneously though, is sear the bottom part of the roast. Now, I just want this seared, so I'm only gonna let it sit there from 30, maybe 40 seconds. It's gonna be a really quick cook. And it's a hunk of meat, so I'm just gonna use my hands, guys. Yeah. Now I'm just gonna take these bones, right at the bone, flip them on their sides. Okay, perfect. And then this, oh yeah. I just want to get this little end piece right here, okay? And that is what I'm looking for on the underside. Okay, we'll take this one off. He's good. Excellent. Now let me pay attention to my bones. Give them a little bit more room here. Perfect. Just let it sit for a couple of minutes. It's always so hard not to touch your food because you just want to see, but again, if you keep looking, you ain't cooking. This one's done. It's beautiful. Beautiful. All right, we made it, you guys. It's time to taste. Okay, in all seriousness, like you feel like you just climbed Mount Everest when you cook a piece of meat like this. It is superb, and I cannot wait any longer to dive in. So here we go, without further ado. I like doing nice, oh my God, it cuts like butter. I like nice thinner slices. Oh my gosh, come on now. Look at that fat. All right, a little bit thicker than that. Oh. This is absolutely stunning. Look at that color, you guys. From up in the top, all the way around through the center of the eye, it is perfectly pink with this amazing crust on the outside. Again, the only thing that we did was salt, pepper. We took off the bones. We added a little bit of garlic, a little bit of rosemary. But with this kind of perfection, you don't have to do much more. Absolutely stunning. Oh my God, look at that. Rested beautifully. It's all in the method, you guys. Don't be afraid to try something just because it seems intimidating. We give you these videos so that way you can dive in. One more slice. Oh my God. That. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna take this slice right here. This with some mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, a nice salad. You can't ask for anything better. Again, totally classic preparation. Now I get to eat it. I'm gonna go for this right here. This is like the chef's bite. Y'all, don't be afraid to get a little bit funky with this. The 28-day dry age is no joke, and it is fabulous. The lightest, most deftest, faintest scent, aroma, flavor of that really deep, rich meat. Oh my God, hold on a second. I need a little bit more just to make sure my taste buds weren't deceiving me. You barely have to chew. It is fabulous. So sweet and rich and meaty, and I cannot wait to eat the rest of this, but I also want to get over here and try my bone out. So this was our more well done side. This was our rare side. All right, now I'm gonna go for my bone over here. This one is the one that I've had my eye on. It's like my prize. There you have it. Prairie Street Prime knocks it out of the park. Yet again, 4 bone-in USDA prime rib roast that has been 28 days dry aged. Just go to the website, prairiestreetprime.com. Check out their kosher concierge. Tell them that you want all of this dry aged stuff. Take it home. Simple preparation. Feed it to your most favorite people or people that you need to ask a favor of. We're gonna see you next week right here on YouTube. Subscribe, Like us, Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm going back to my bone. See you next time.
Subscribe to our channel now and set your notifications so you don't miss our latest recipes and chef-led tutorials. Then head over to prairiestreetprime.com to shop for your next big meal.